Hey guys, Pastor Stuart here. I said in the last video that we sent out in our update letter that in a few weeks I would be sending out another one, and this one will be a little bit more technical. It's not me and Chelsea out here kind of giving you a life update and letting you know that we're still alive and kind of telling you what we've been doing the past month. And in this video, what I wanted to do is give you more of a technical timeline of what the last 6 months have looked like, what the next 6 months look like. Sometimes I get phone calls or I get text messages or emails, and they're like, "Hey, Pastor Stuart, what did you preach on Sunday?" Or "How's the church going?" And so I wanted just to be clear with you all, and specifically this video is for our ministry partners, those of you who have partnered with us as the Sharp family, but also, in relation to that, have partnered with Boulder Church, and specifically have partnered financially. And I want you to know what you're investing your money into. I want you to know, yes, you're investing into the kingdom of God, you're investing into us, but I want you to know and be very clear what it is that we've been doing, and what the future kind of looks like moving forward. And before I do any of that, though, I just want to zoom out a little bit and just remind some of you just my story, how we got here, what's been the path for us to get to Boulder. And so, yeah, like when I really surrendered my life to the Lord and gave my life to Christ as a 17-year-old, immediately felt the Lord just calling me into ministry, calling me into some type of gospel work, and was discipled by a guy from California. And I went out to Bible college in Los Angeles, and I was a missions major because in my mind I was like, I want to do the hardest thing for the Lord, and really explored that for a number of years. Spent an entire summer with some wonderful missionaries in Senegal, West Africa. And after that trip, I kind of learned some things about myself. I just was able to kind of condense even like just what is God calling me to. And so then I was like, where I was at was a little bit farther downstream of culture than what I wanted to be. And so I shifted my focus to North Africa. And so when I met Chelsea, and you can ask her this, when I met her, like one of the classic Bible college, I was like, hey, we're not going to date unless you're ready to go to the mission field kind of thing. And she was fully like surrendered and open to that. And that's where we kind of had our sights set for years. We graduated, got married. I went and interned at a church up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, kind of with the idea of, hey, I'm going to be here for a few years and then be sent out somewhere in the 1040 window, thinking it would be North Africa. And then situations change, life happens. We started having kids, and an opportunity presented itself outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Our pastor, Pastor Jake, for 6 years down in Statesville, North Carolina, he called me and was like, hey, I got 30 teenagers and 30 adults. You want to take the teens, and I'll take the adults, and just see what God does. And we did, and God did something amazing, not only at the church there, but also just in my heart. My thesis as an 18-year-old was, America is over church, it's over evangelized, and surprise, like as an 18-year-old I was wrong. America is not, it may be over churched in some aspects, but it's definitely not over gospelized, if that's a word. It's not over evangelized, and I think we're seeing more and more and more of that as we continue to move into the future, and as the Western church really declines, and you look to the east, where the church really started as these places that revivals are happening, and the church is really just exploding. And so while I was in North Carolina, while I was in the middle of the Bible Belt, Statesville, North Carolina, a town of 25,000 people, at least while we were there, and there was over 300 churches, and I was encountering people monthly, if not yearly, that were lost and without Christ, and had never been discipled, had never, just didn't even know the basics of our faith. And so the Lord began to stir up in my heart and Chelsea's heart this idea of like, what does it look like for us to not be goers to a foreign field, but to be senders, to be to pastor a church that sends people, and kind of just this angst in me of for this church in America to kind of to wake up and to really stand up in these times. And so we began to look at Los Angeles, where Chelsea's from, and we were I grew up spending a lot of time in Asheville, North Carolina, and always had just a deep affection for that place. It's come to find out that it's called Boulder of the East, so that's but we would go over to Asheville a lot, and there was probably 2017, 2018, we were praying through this, and there was a season where every other weekend we were going over into Asheville and just like prayer walking the downtown and just like thinking like what would it look like for us to take a church here or to plant a church here. And then I just, the Lord, something happened and the Lord kind of shifted my focus, and I began to not necessarily be burdened for all the lost people that were there, but I was burdened that, man, here's a city and there's just so many churches, and I knew he was doing something in me and preparing us to go to a place that just was unchurched. Not that there was like this base of Christians already there and all these churches and turf wars or whatever. And I'm not saying this about Asheville, but just in general, that's what he was doing in me. And so in the fall of 2020, kind of coming out of that first wave of COVID, the Lord just really impressed upon my heart Boulder, Colorado, and began to pray through that. And there's a whole backstory about why Boulder that I don't have time to get into in this video. But really began to pray through that. The pastors at our church were super supportive, and they sent us on a survey trip here in 2021. And while we were here, we were praying that God would give us a no, because we know, if you know Boulder, people talk about this. This is a destination. This is a beautiful place. And so we can easily manufacture yes. So Lord, give us a no if this is not the door that you want us to walk through. And we threw out a bunch of different fleeces and really just we're trying to test the Lord and like, hey God, we want to make the right decision here, but we felt his favor, and we were just really just like moved in our guts at the amount of people that are in this town, the college that's in this town, the types of people that are in this town, and yet this 6 churches preaching the gospel, and that statistic kind of fluctuates as churches come and churches go. In a town of 175,000 people, 6 churches, 3 are legacy churches, 3 are church plants. One of the church plants in town is the oldest church plant in town, has been here for 13 years. They just got a building. They're the first church in over 100 years to get property in this town. And so it's just a wild place. And so the Lord began to do that, and we were like, well, what's going to be the avenue for us, the church plant? We studied intercultural studies and kind of like church planting movements in a foreign context, but I didn't know anything about domestic church planting, really. I'd learned a lot about pastoring and preaching and shepherding and communicating and discipling, but not about what does it mean I've never started a business or anything. What does it mean to start a church? And so we kind of looked to a residency program down in Flower Mound, Texas. And so we spent 18 months at the Village Church in Flower Mound and learned so much from them. And the Lord did a lot of inner healing just in our marriage, in our life, that he's kind of still, the journey is still, we're still on that journey of healing and just all the things that we learned internally that I thought this was just going to be for us to come and train, to be sent out of this place. But really the Lord used it as a place to really to prepare our hearts and to consecrate us before the work that he called us to. And so we got here in January. And so for the past 6 months, we've been here. We got our kids. We're doing like a homeschool hybrid for our kids up in a town right outside of Boulder in Longmont. And then the Lord just opened a beautiful door for us to do that there, and have made wonderful relationships with all of the pastors in town that are, that, like I said, that are preaching the Bible, or, at least attempting to, and preaching the gospel, and many of the church planters. And they have been so warm and welcoming to us. There's not a spirit of competition or like the turf wars that you may experience for my church people out there in the South or in the DFW area. It's really just very collaborative, and that's been one of the most encouraging aspects to me, because I had no idea what I was getting into when we kind of parachuted into Boulder in January. But from day one, from week one, was just invited into these lead pastor gatherings, and it has really encouraged my heart and Chelsea's as well. And so for the past 6 months, that's what we've been doing. Kind of this, the way I'd like to say it, just because I think it paints a good picture, is that we've been planting our family before attempting to plant Boulder Church. And what that looks like is just acclimating to the city, getting to know the city, trying to just talk to people, meeting people that are Christians or non-Christians or whoever, just like learning the culture and asking questions and meeting our neighbors and meeting the people that we go to the grocery store and see all the time, or the people that we see as, there's a gym that I work out at and climb at that's right up the road, and I see the same people there. There's a little I kind of even office out of there sometimes, and I see the same people. We're trying to build those relationships and get to know what are the questions that people are asking here in Boulder? Because I can promise you they're different than the questions that people are asking in Statesville, North Carolina, and they're certainly different than the questions that people are asking in Flower Mound, Texas. And so how can we just learn this culture? And I want you to think about this. And again, like I said, this is for our supporters. I want you to think about it like this: when a missionary, and this was our background, this was our training. When a missionary goes to a foreign field, first of all, if he's going to a foreign field that he doesn't know the language, he's going to spend a year to 3 years learning the language. And many of you, when I was first asking you and inviting you into this partnership, I kind of described our residency program as that language training school. Only 18 months, but because some of you had questions. Well, why don't you just go straight to Boulder? Why don't you, Pastor Stewart, you're ready, like just go to Boulder. A, I wasn't ready, and I didn't know what I didn't know. But B, I needed to learn church planting. I needed to, you could say, like, learn the language. And so we spent 18 months doing that. But a missionary that's going to a foreign context, they're not thinking, man, in 3 years, we're going to have a church full of elders, full of deacons, full of just faithful, giving members. Like, they're thinking, man, in 5 to 10 years, I hope that I have this. And I'm not saying that the church is going to take that long to get started here in Boulder at all. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is, if you're asking me, like, what am I preaching on Sunday? I'm not. It just so happens that this Sunday I am preaching, praise God. I am getting the opportunity, my first time preaching in Boulder, but almost every other Sunday I'm not. When you ask how's our church going, and this isn't like a correction for anybody, I love these questions, and that's why I wanted to make this video to address it. The church hasn't started yet. We're here learning the culture like a missionary on a foreign field. This is a mission field. And so when I tell people, like, we are technically church planters, we're Eufaula Baptist Churches church planters, we're the Village Churches church planters, but we are definitely much more like missiologists in a foreign land. I just, we've had some guests come out, and the common thing that guests say, especially the ones from North Carolina, I just could not believe this. I couldn't believe it. Every store we went into, they're flying the trans flag. Every business we went to, we were probably the only Christians there. This is a post-Christian, post-secular, lost pagan city. And now God has moved our hearts with compassion for it and to love it. We're not coming in here with the posture of like vitriolic hate or anything like that. It's like, no, like, Lord, and that's part of this missiological work in the beginning of, Lord, like, break our hearts for these people. Like, God, we don't want to just gather, homeless Christians in this town. We don't want to just like find the Christians who have moved here because they work in aerospace or in tech or something, or they went to CU and now they're kind of here and they just want a church to go to. It's like, Lord, break our heart for the lost people. God, give us divine interruptions with people that we can share our story with and share your good news with. I've shared some of those in the past, just of the times that we have, and so I won't go into it again. And so that's what the past 6 months have been. And so moving forward, we have, I would say, 6 couples that we've been investing in, people that are, not a part of a church necessarily in town, but people that that the Lord has just given us favor with. There's a couple of them that I would even describe as people of peace. And if you've never heard that terminology before, that terminology could apply to, a saved person or a lost person. It just means it's a person that's well connected, that's inviting to us. They're not pushing us back and asking us, why are you here? Go away. But they're just like, oh, that's awesome that you're here. Let me introduce you to Jane, or let me introduce you to Bill. Let me introduce you to these people. And we've met some people like that. And that is just God's favor, because those kind of people are a gift to us, because then they let us then kind of mine out their relational networks and just expand our networks in the city. And so we have about 6 different people that we're meeting with. There's 2 different women that Chelsea's reading the Bible with, and a few different men that I'm kind of spending every week with on a regular rhythm, just investing into and trying to, just build a friendship with them, cast vision with them, and really invite them into the work that God has called us to as well. And so in September, we're starting a Bible study in our home. This is a huge deal. This is kind of the genesis of what will eventually become Boulder Church. And my hope is that by the end of the year, by the end of this year, that Bible study or home group, fellowship, whatever we end up calling, it doesn't matter. What we're going to do is we're going to eat good food together, pray together, and read the Bible together, and kind of do a lot of Acts 2:42 type stuff together. And so I hope that by the end of the year that has developed into a healthy, just little community of faith that meets in our home. And my goal would be is to already identifying who are the leaders in this group that I can then say, hey, Joe, why don't you go and let's start what we've started in my home. Let's start one in your home. Or Bill, let's what we started in my home, let's start this in your home as well. And then as we move into the spring of 2025, the hope would be, the goal would be, the prayer is that we then have 3 active, just like community groups that are meeting, that are just like developing community, inviting in lost people, inviting in people into the community, into their homes. I've talked about this before, and I don't mean to rant and rave on this video, but I don't get a lot of time to talk to all of you people. And so thank you for listening if you've listened this far. But I really believe that Jesus, when he came, he ushered in the kingdom through eating and drinking. He ushered into the kingdom through dining room tables. And I think that so often we miss that, at least when I was in Bible college, and a lot of the church plant, I did take church planting classes, but a lot of the training was a little antiquated and was just, can be culturally irrelevant in some places. And really the methodology was, go canvass the city, knock, every door in the city, invite them to church, go rent out a conference room at a hotel, and then just show up and people will be there, and then you'll start to build momentum. And that model may work in some places. It hasn't worked here. And all the statistics about Boulder, a lot of times it's because people ran that game plan here. They come in super fast and furious, and don't really develop friendships or develop people or develop just relationships with people. It's kind of like, hey, I'm Pastor so-and-so, here's my vision, let's go. And it just doesn't work. And so, like I said, we've been focusing on building those relationships, focusing really on the ground level, much more missiological approach than an attractional approach. So all that to say, spring of 2025, and back to the timeline, I hope that we have 3 different home groups, maybe one that's still meeting in our home, one that's in 2 other homes that are meeting. And then as we move into the summer, begin doing more outreach events, like whether that's neighborhood parties, block parties, different things, to where we can then start to just kind of like spread that reach of people that I've been, like the men that I've been investing in, the women that Chelsea's been investing in. They're now ready, not only to, we didn't just discover them and develop them, now we're ready to deploy them for the work of the ministry of Boulder Church. And then begin, as we get into August of 2025, so about a year from now, begin soft launching and talking about, hey, what does it look like for us to start gathering on a Sunday? Do we have, are the kids going to be in the service? Do we have a kids service? Because if we have to have a kids service, if we're going to have, this thing at a gathering, man, that, like, okay, so how many core team members, how many lodge team members, how many volunteers do we need? And so there's all of these aspects that start to come into play when you're talking about launching Boulder Church. And so my hope, my prayer, my dream, my plea with the Lord is just that by the end of 2025 that we have launched, I can see us doing it in the fall of 2025, at the latest Christmas of 2025, just launching the service, and let's start gathering together as a church. We have these healthy home groups, we have these healthy community groups that are happening all around the city. Now what's it look like for us to come together and gather together on Sunday to worship King Jesus, to take communion, and to hear the preached word of God declared to the people as the doctrinal road is set for Boulder Church. And so that's kind of our timeline. It's not 5 to 10 years, but it's also not, hey, we planted in 9 months after being here. It's so, if you're thinking about it in numbers, it's about an 18 to 24 month timeline from when we got here in January to when I hope that we will launch the church. And so just be in prayer for that. I've talked to you about this before. It's really expensive to live here, and I could talk ad nauseum about that. And every church planter and every pastor in this town knows that. But what I want to communicate to you is not the financial burden of being here, but the lostness of being here. Boulder, Colorado is just an incredibly lost town. There is a religion here. It's the religion that's kind of become the religion of our nation. I already mentioned it earlier. Everywhere you go, you see the flags flying. It's very anti-Christian. And so I would just say, could you pray? You know, many of you, like I said, this video is predominantly for those people who are giving to Boulder Church, who are giving to us, investing into the kingdom, investing into us. But I just want to challenge you, hey, please pray for us, pray for our family, for Chelsea, for Emerson, Olivia, Cora, and then for just the blank spaces, the spaces that will eventually have names in them of people who have joined our core team, people who have joined just the calling that God has placed on our life. Begin to pray for them as well. And then I want to say this. Let me just challenge you as we close. I know, listen, I'm a pastor, so I gotta do this. But like, I don't have to. I get to, because I love you. Look, if you're in Statesville, North Carolina, if you're in Flower Mound, Texas, if you are watching this from God knows where, I have no idea. Look, like your town is a mission field. Like I've been communicating to you how lost Boulder is, and I'm thankful that God has called us here, and it's a wrestle all the time with the Lord of God. Like, it's so hard here. Like, why this place? Which is, by the way, the irony of the whole thing is that I, as an 18-year-old, praying, God, send me to Africa because I want to do the hardest thing for you. Boulder is hard, if not harder, just for very different reasons. But let me challenge you. Like who is it in your life? Like who are the lost people? Who are the people that you can start? Hey, let's start reading the Bible together. Let's start praying together. And maybe that's just with your wife and your kids, or if you're not married, it's with a roommate or somebody. Just start doing the things that push back darkness in this world. You know, like I'm so thankful that you're supporting us. I'm so thankful that you're praying for us. But man, I want to encourage you, do the same thing where you're at. We live in wild times. You look around at the news, the divide is getting so wide, and the tribalism, the extremism, the stuff that just happened at the Olympics, the stuff that's happening politically in our nation, it's just crazy. But you can push back darkness in a small way. And so, I love you. Chelsea loves you. Our kids love you. We wouldn't be here without you. I say that a lot. I write that a lot, and I hope you know that. Like, God's work has always been funded by God's people. And so thank you for giving. Thank you for those of you that it's a sacrifice every month. Thank you for just believing in us. Thank you for just having faith in the Lord and believing that, hey, when you cast your bread upon the water, when you invest into the kingdom of God, it's going to come back and it's going to return on your life. And that's not a prosperity gospel, but it's a gospel of being faithful. It's the good news that when we get to give back what God and Christ has given to us, and to steward with our lives. And so, Chelsea and I love you. I'm not going to keep this video is at 22 minutes so far. So if you've watched this long, it's like you got to hear me almost do a sermon. So thank you. If you didn't get to the end, how dare you? No, I'm just kidding. No, thank you. Thank you for watching this. Keep us in your prayers. We love you. I'll let you go. Bye.